Hello and welcome, my friend. It's great to be with you again. Today we're going to look at the Gospel of John, and we're going to begin in chapter 4. The Pharisees heard that Jesus was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who was baptizing, but his disciples. When the Lord heard of this, he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about the 6th hour. That would be noontime, so high noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into town to buy some food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "Are you a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman and you're asking me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." Now, what is this about Jews don't talk to Samaritans? Now, first of all, it would not be typical for a Jewish man to be talking to a woman alone, but particularly a Samaritan woman. Now, the Samaritans were an area of the Jewish homeland that had been taken by the Assyrians. So the kingdom of the Jews had been divided into two. After the kingdom was divided, we had what we called the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And in the northern kingdom, when God brought judgment, as he did in the southern kingdom later, right, in the southern kingdom it was King Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon. In the northern kingdom it was the Assyrians. And the Assyrians came in and took over that area. But when they did, they left some Jewish people there. And then they flooded the area with non-Jews. And I'm going to look at this real quickly in 2 Kings, verse 17 and verse 24. I'm sorry, chapter 17 and verse 24. The king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and settled them in the towns of Samaria to replace the Israelites. Okay, so these are the people who came in and lived. Now, I won't go on, but God did bring judgment there. He sent lions to hazard the people who came to live in that area that were not Jews. And so the king of Samaria ends up sending a Jewish priest back to the area to teach the people how to worship the God of the land, as the Assyrians would have said. But it's the true God. So what we have now by Jesus' time is a group of people who have intermarried. So they're not pure from the Jewish people's perspective. So the Jewish people didn't associate with them. They were half-breeds. So this woman knows her history. This woman knows Jacob is her ancestor. This woman knows who the God of Israel is. And this is where Jesus picks up on this woman. Now, a couple of things that we can see here. This woman is coming to get water at the hottest part of the day, high noon. Most times, the women would come early in the morning and oftentimes again in the evening, early evening, when the sun has gone down, or in other words, when it's not so hot. Remember, this is a time before air conditioning and buildings that have cooling systems of many sorts. So this woman, it seems, may have been someone who is somewhat ostracized because of the life she has lived. And we'll see that a little further on. But it's important to see here that Jesus, knowing who she is, doesn't judge her. He speaks to her. He asks her for water. Now, Jesus probably really wanted some water. He'd been walking a long time in the hot sun. But there's no doubt that also Jesus is purposely engaging this woman in a conversation so that he can introduce himself to her as the Messiah, showing that the Messiah, the Savior, has come not just for those purebred Jews, but the message of the gospel, the good news, is also for her and her people. Now, one of the things that we have to also see here is that Jesus says to her, if you knew who I was, if you knew who it was that was asking you for water, instead you would ask me, and I would give you living water. This living water is what entices her. Now, at first, she thinks he's talking about fresh water, like running water, living water. Because she says, would you give me this water so I don't have to come back to refill all the time? Now, Jesus doesn't criticize her. Jesus doesn't say, you stupid woman, you got it wrong, you don't understand. No, not in the slightest, not even the littlest hint of that. Jesus, in love and in kindness, begins to explain to her who she is and who he is. And that's where we're going to pick it up next time. But before I end this, I just want you to understand that this Jesus who approached this Samaritan woman right where she was, without criticizing her, without judging her, without demanding that she get her life together first before they could have a conversation, this same Jesus is saying the same thing to you. He's not waiting for you to get your act together. He's saying, come. Come and see who I am. Just like Jesus already knew all about this woman, as we'll see as we get to the next chapters in our next time. He knows who you are too, and he knows everything about you. He knows your faults. He knows the good things. He knows the bad things. And guess what? He still wants you. He still has a place for you. He's still calling you to seek him. I hope you will take his invitation to heart. Just ask him. He will come to you. God bless you, my friend. We'll see you next time where we pick up on chapter 4, verse 11.